Hello internet friends, and welcome to the Legion Beta first look at the Shadow Priest currently, and what we found after our 3-hour testing cycle. Just about 3 hours, yeah. So, not a lot of like spell changes and graphics to really show off here, so I'm going to rattle off all the different bugs or things not working properly. I'll throw out some shadow crashes. It's the same exact ability that like General Phys X has, but it looks cool. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's any good or not, but... So attack and casting animations are kind of buggy. I'm playing an undead female right now, but if you spam Mind Flay, it stops channeling, and then your character, like, does the ground cannibalism, like, Worgen animation or something like that for some reason. So I don't know if it's just like a thing for Shadow Priests or if it's a thing for casters right now. So yeah, Mind Flay doesn't work. The damage and heal component of Shadow Mend is not working properly. So like when you Shadow Mend yourself, I get healed, and if I'm in combat, I put some dots up here so I stay in combat for a little while. When the Shadow Mend component is when you heal yourself, you'll take damage afterwards, but nothing happens. Like the damage component doesn't work, so I'm not sure. That's the only way you can really like heal yourself when you're a Shadow Priest now, is to use Shadow Mend, which will eat up insanity if you have any at all. Let's see here. So, Psychic Scream still denotes a mana cost, which is incorrect. Mind Flay, and the combat log generates 3, 3, 3, and then 1 insanity, where it's supposed to do 13. It says 13, but I'll pop it over here. It'll do, it does 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. It's only 9. So something's wrong with the insanity generation on Mind Flay currently. Power Shield has a mana cost, which you can still cast, but it has a mana cost, which is incorrect. The Mind Blast cooldown currently when you go into Void Form is removed, which is incorrect. It's supposed to just be cooled down by 3 additional seconds and then determined by haste. Shadow Crawl for both your Shadow Fiend and if you take Mind Bender has no denotion that Shadow Crawl exists, which is its blink self-buff ability, which I kind of feel is like, where is this extra damage coming from? I don't know why it's not available in the game. Also, Vampiric Touch is not healing the priest right now for its 1-to-1 healing component. It's involved with it. It doesn't heal at all, so it's just not in the game currently. And then if you have a mind-controlled NPC, if you have Dominant Mind, when you use Dominate Mind, moving around sometimes causes you to crash. Just a bug right now. But what happens when you Dominate Mind, when you Dominate Mind someone with Dominant Mind, you get a pet bar for that NPC. By default, Dominate Mind cannot be used on mechanical beings or players. Also, if you have a mind-controlled person and you use Mindbender or Shadow Fiend, it will use that over it, and vice versa. If you have a Mindbender or Shadow Fiend out and you try to dominate something, it will remove your Mindbender or your Shadow Fiend, so be wary. That's a thing. So, other big changes here for the Shadow Priest, to go through all this stuff real quick, is that Void Form is your new passive. Whenever you reach 100 Insanity, which is your new builder resource, you never really spend Insanity exactly. Psychic Horror spends Insanity, and Shadow Mend spends Insanity, but you're not really going to be using them very often, and you can. But for DPS purposes wise, when you're in Void Form, Mind Blast cooldown reduced by 3 seconds, and you get 30% increased shadow damage done. When in Void Form, you gain 1% haste every 1 second. And then it will persist for 20 seconds after Void Form ends. And also, while in Void Form, it causes your insanity to constantly drain faster and faster until completely drained, and then Void Form ends. Every second that you gain 1 haste, the Void Form drain of insanity increases by 1, and then every 2 seconds, you lose that insanity. So basically, every time that it takes away your insanity, it goes up by 2. So, Shadowy Apparitions are still in the game on Shadow Word Pain crits. They float toward the enemy and deal damage. The new mastery for Shadow Priest, however, is that it increases the damage of Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Void Bolt. Void Bolt is your new big nuke when you're in Void Form. Cooldown reduced by haste, of course. Instant cast shows a shadowy damage bolt at the target for the largest one single hit button press of damage you can as a Shadow Priest. And it extends the duration of Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch by 3 seconds. You can only use it in Void Form. So there's like a rotational component in Void Form where you're kind of like always making sure you're hitting Void Bolt on cooldown. You're always making sure you're hitting Shadow Word, Mind Blast. I was confused there because Shadow Word Void. says same animation tooltip there. Mind Blast on cooldown, Void Bolt on cooldown. Make sure you refresh your dots before you go into Void Form so they can stay up the entire time. And then you are spamming either Mind Flay or Mind Spike. Mind Spike is a talent level 100. It replaces Mind Flay. And the way that the haste scaling works on it, you can get off 5 Mind Spikes for the full 5 stacks of 50% damage increase on the target for your Mind Blasts within that cooldown period. It may change a little bit when you're actually in Void Form, where you'll only get off like 1 or 2 Mind Spikes, then you'll have to Mind Blast again, which is still a damage gain, but when you're not in Void Form, you can get off 5 in a row, and then get off your 1 normal cooldown Mind Blast. Like, literally, it's just perfectly tuned in that regard right now. It's great. What else happened here? Dispersion, nerfed by 30% damage taken, 2-minute cooldown, lasts for 6 seconds. You can use while stunned, fear, and silence. But big thing for dispersion right now, not sure it's a bug or not, or if it's intentional, you can still cast during dispersion, which could be real, could be fake, I don't know. But you still can cast while you're dispersed. But it was technically nerfed in its amount of DR, so it could be a thing. Fade Glyph now is part of Fade. It is a global cooldown to Fade, though, but it is a 10% DR for 10 seconds while you are faded. Dispel Magic is still only beneficial toward offensive. It's an offensive Dispel, and you have Mass Dispel as well. Psychic Horror is still here. Costs Insanity, that's your ranged stun. Psychic Scream is still here. Silence is still here. Shackle Undead is still here. Shadow Word Death is still technically an execute. It generates 30 Insanity if the target dies, but if you take Reaper of Souls, you can use it at 35% instead of 20% HP on the target, and it will always generate Insanity even if it does not kill the target. What you'll find out here as I rattle off some more things is that there's a lot of awkward synergies that totally make dead talents or amazing talent synergies within the Shadow Priest. When I was doing my testing, I felt like there was like 3 different versions of Shadow Priest. One that is sort of a 50-50 between Void Form and outside, like you're both, you know, pretty good outside and pretty good inside Void Form. There's one that's like, oh my god, get into Void Form right now. Never stay in regular Shadow Priest form. Get into Void Form right now. Or there's one that is kind of like slow to get there, but you can stay in Void Form a long time. So that'll become what the fight demands. What you can utilize if you need to be in Void Form longer, or if there's too much movement where Void Form isn't really a good benefit, and you can't always just tunnel when you're in Void Form, so maybe you want to be better when you're outside of Void Form. So there's a lot of possibilities for how the Shadow Priest community will find out the best use of Void Form. I think the funnest thing that I figured out during testing is that the new, like, EP meter for Shadow Priests will be how many stacks of residual insanity you have. That's how many haste stacks or how long you lasted in Void Form, right? So that'll be interesting to see. Vampiric Embrace real quick, still in the game. Right now I have Sand Lane talented, which is 20% more of Vampiric Touch damage, which then translates directly into you. And then VE is increased by 20% or 2% on the actual tooltip here. VE has no limit on how many people it can heal, so it's a pretty big HPS increase if you take this. Auspicious Spirits is now a talent right here, helps crit scaling and multi-dotting probably with your Shadow Word Pain. Shadowy Insight's also here too, which also kind of benefits from from Shadow Word Pain blanketing, but it's sort of like a single target increase because it resets your Mind Blast more often. So again, chances to build up more insanity and get right back into Void Form again. There's a lot of interesting synergies between different talents. It's a builder and not really a spender class, sort of like old school balance cycles. You build up to Void Form 100%, 100 insanity, and then you try to stay in that as long as you can. You only build insanity with Mind Flay, Mind Blast, Mind Bender if talented, because every auto attack it does will give you 5 insanity, and it scales with haste. So the more haste you have, the faster auto attacks, giving you more insanity. Replaces Shadow Fiend, of course. You also get it from Mind Spike if talented, because this replaces Mind Flay. And again, you can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can Mind Blast for the damage, then you can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you're right there at that 1 second window, and then you can go right back into Shadow Form with it, and then you can Void Blast. You're always going to make sure your dots are up to begin with. You can get a couple of these off. Again, Mind Blast is currently bugged on the beta, so you can actually spam it, which is incorrectly tuned. I have done some testing right now with being able to spam Mind Blast. I don't think you can really stay in void form for more than like 70 seconds. So it's gonna be weird to figure out. The Shadow Priest community will figure out how long, based on what your talents are, how long you can stay insane. And that'll be the new benchmark for how a Shadow Priest works, is how long you can stay insane. Shadowward Void, which is in your level 15 talents now, is the exact same damage as Mind Blast, but it generates 10 more insanity, and it has a recharge system where you can have multiple of them sort of cached up, ready to go. Fortress of the Mind's a passive where Mind Flay and Mind Blast. It does not work on Mind Spike. They both deal more damage and generate more insanity. And Twist of Fate is the passive where you deal damage underneath a certain health threshold. You gain more damage and healing for 10 seconds. So, like Twist of Fate, Reaper of Souls, synergistically right there, you get stronger Shadowward Deaths, and they'll always give you insanity. So there's a benefit for underneath there. Void Lord is just a 10% increased damage when you are in void form, so it's 40% instead of 30%. And you also a bonus applied to your absorbs and healing. So your Shadowward, your powered shield would be stronger in void form, as well as your Vampiric Embrace or your Shadow Mends would be stronger as well. Void Ray doesn't work with Mind Spike, because you need to be able to cast Mind Flay for it to work. So you actually literally can't use these together. Legacy of the Void is that when you cast 2 Shadowward Pains back-to-back, with could work with Shadowy Insight for cross-dotting, right? Cross-dot, Shadowward Pains, you get a reset on Mind Blast, and then when you cast 2 Mind Blasts, you get a 50% stacking damage bonus for your next Shadow Word, which is either Shadowward Pain. It works on Shadowward Void as well, but like I don't know how good that will be exactly. But you do get super powerful, double damage Shadowward Pains. It also would work on Shadowward Death as well for execute phases. So I can't go into theorizing all the different talent builds you will do as Shadow Priest. There is some interesting interactions with it, but before this video gets too long, I'm going to show you Surrender to Madness, which I'm sure everyone out there wants to see. I'll make sure I'm out of combat here before I switch over here. Didn't work. I'll have to reload. Surrender to Madness is a 10-minute cooldown that you gain 300% more generation of insanity on every ability you use that generates insanity until you die. Which, when you exit void form, you die. So, I will show you real quick what it looks like with the bugged Mind Blast to stay in void form for as long as possible. This is just for purely testing purposes. This is not how it will be on live, because Mind Blast will have a low cooldown, but it will not have an instant spammable cooldown. This is to show you how fast you can stay in this form. You wouldn't pop it immediately, because you don't need to have a generation immediately. You'd kind of like do your own thing and yada yada this and yada yada that, and you'd spam some buttons and do things, because you're still generating enough anyway. You'd have your dots up. Right now I don't have my dots up, so you go insane. There you go. Boom. Now you gain a ton of insanity. Let me bring up the spellbook here. Mind Blast generates 80. Mind Flay would be 67 over the duration. And then Shadowward Void would be, it says 30, but it actually gets buffed. It gives you a freaking ton. It gives you 90, I want to say. But as you see here, I've got almost 40 stacks of Void form. You can see the tooltip right here. As it stacks up with your losing insanity buff, your haste increase is going up and 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 up. It's going up, baby. Again, you cannot do this when this game was live, because you won't be able to actually spam Mind Blast off the GCD like this, because it's currently not working as intended. But we're going, keep going. We're about to die soon. Here we go. 65, 65, 66, 67. Oh, it's gonna be like 72 and I'm gonna die. Or 73. Oh, keep going. Here we go. 85 every 2 seconds. We're still doing it. Oh, it's gonna go right here, isn't it? 83. Oh, when's it gonna happen? It's 100 insanity every 2 seconds. It's gonna go. Oh man, this is as long as I've ever done it. This is weird that I'm doing it in the video. It's going to happen. It would have happened a while ago on live. Oh, you can't get more than 100. Well, that confirms that. 100 is the max stacks you can get. And let's just die. And we're dead. Well, that's conclusive testing that 100 is your max stacks of void form, so you can basically get 100% haste. Well, that's the end of the Shadow Priest preview. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the video description box below. If you want to see the entire VOD of my entire testing process where we find stuff out over a 3-hour period, you can please do that on my Twitch page or the channel guide or the link in the description box as well. If you want to help me out and throw me a couple of bucks to make this my full-time job and testing and streaming and making content, you can check out my Patreon page. Thank you all so much. If you enjoyed this little preview, hit that like button. It helps me out a great deal as well if you don't want to check out the rest. I will see you in the next video. Have a great rest of your day. See you all soon.